Good day, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on optimization of beneficial ownership declarations. We're so glad you can join our webinar this morning. My name is Shani Kelly, and I'm from the Corporate Education and Compliance Unit of the CIPC. I will be your moderator today, and I am delighted to have with me our esteemed guest, Mr. Stian Kapp. We will show you two demonstration video, one for the BO process for private companies and another for the BO process for non-profit companies. Before we get to the presentation, I just would like to inform you that moving forward, our webinars will be hosted on a new platform. On this new platform, you will need to register to get a link to future webinar events. The invite and link will be posted on the CIPC Facebook page and on the CIPC's website. During registration, you will be asked to answer a few simple questions. This will help us better understand our audience and confirm that we are reaching our target markets. Please note that your information will not be shared. It will only be used for this purpose. Once again, let me remind you all of the Learn IBIS course for SMMEs. We would like you to register for this course. It's for directors of small, medium, and micro enterprises. The course is free of charge. If you would like to enroll or get more information on the course, you can go on the CIPC website or send an email to elearning@cipc.co.za. Let's begin. Welcome, Ms. Steenkamp.
Thanks very much, Shani. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so without any further ado, we're going to discuss the BO optimized system that the CIPC released, just to give you a bit of guidance on what the changes entail and what you need to know to navigate the new system. Let me just, now the slide isn't moving. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let me just end the slideshow. First, let's see. Can you all see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Just, okay, thank you. And is it moving? Okay, I'm going to leave it in that format because it's not moving on slideshow for some reason.
Our audience says it is moving.
Okay, yes, but in that format, it's not moving on slideshow. So let's just jump in. Apologies for seeing the slides on the side, but it's fine. It's information that we're going to impart in any event. So just for background, the CIPC launched its new optimized beneficial ownership declaration functionality on the 22nd of August, 2025. And this process was aimed at simplifying beneficial ownership filing, making it more efficient. So since the release and to date, and I suppose it's a bit more than that at this point, the CIPC received more than 23,000 declarations on the simplified functionality, which is a testament to its efficacy. It's important to highlight the fact that the new system does not entail any changes to the legislative or CIPC internal requirements. The differences lie in the simplification of the process and elevating the ease of doing business in South Africa concept. So the rules, etc., attached to beneficial ownership remains the same. The only thing is that the CIPC has simplified the process a bit to make it easier for our clients. So what has changed? Beneficial ownership information by corporate vehicles. This is companies, external companies, and closed corporations registered with the CIPC must be submitted to the Commission annually. We all know this, or as and when the information changes through amendments. The optimized system allows non-affected entities without beneficial ownership to declare to comply with the legislative requirement of still submitting a securities register or a members register in terms of closed corporations as easily and quickly as possible, and to reduce the burden of red tape for small profit companies, NPCs, and CCs with zero additional ownership, influence, or control. So just before we get into what has changed and what you need to know, is this optimized system is focused on declaration of beneficial ownership where there are no beneficial owners to declare. So we know in terms of the legislation, there's still a requirement to submit a securities register or a members register in the case of CCs, but there's no beneficial ownership information declared on this platform. So you will see when we go through the ownership questions that it shows the system navigates you towards this system or points you to the normal BO platform that we all know to declare beneficial ownership. So it's very important. This optimized functionality is for non-affected entities without any beneficial ownership to declare. So what do you need to know? There's no upload of a mandate required when following this system. So although the entities are still required to ensure that the filer is mandated to submit a beneficial ownership declaration on their behalf, mandates must be retained by the filer, and it must be noted that this mandate can be requested by the CIPC for filing at any time, but the document does not have to be uploaded. The disclaimer confirms that the mandate is in place. So this is one of the things that has changed. The mandate must still be in place. So a filer must still have a written mandate by the entity that they are representing and filing on their behalf, but they must keep record of that, and it does not need to be uploaded with the CIPC. So this is what the disclaimer on the declaration on the optimized functionality will look like. So it says that I hereby declare that I'm authorized and mandated to file the beneficial ownership declaration on behalf of the entity. And I confirm that the mandatory mandate document is available and can be produced upon request from the CIPC. I confirm further that the information furnished herein is true and accurate according to my knowledge, and I am fully aware that enforcement action may be taken in terms of the Companies Act should false or misleading information be provided. So this disclaimer and declaration entails the process of I have the mandate in my possession, I am mandated to file on behalf of this entity, and as far as I know, the knowledge and the information that I am submitting is true and correct. Filers must ensure that the contact details as per the customer profile is correct and valid prior to starting the BO declaration. So this, we have advocated this in the past, is that the filer must have a valid customer profile in order to submit a beneficial ownership on behalf of an entity. And they must make sure for OTP purposes that the contact details, email as well as cell phone, is updated and correct before starting the BO declaration. The new system, and you will see this on the video, the new system, however, provides a link for the update of this information. So once you've started the beneficial ownership declaration process, it'll show you and ask you whether you are sure that this is the correct information that the OTPs will be sent to. If not, there's a link that takes you to the update of the customer profile, but it will be 48 hours from the update of the customer profile contact details before the OTPs will be sent to the amended contact details. So what this entails is if there is an update of the customer profile contact details, it'll take 48 hours before you can proceed with the beneficial ownership filing in order to receive the OTPs with the amended contact details. What you need to know further with the company type selection, it has been reduced to two types, namely affected companies, which functionality remains unchanged. CIPC did not touch the affected company, so the process remains exactly the same, or non-affected companies. So at this point, the client will select either affected companies as normal and follow that process, or non-affected company if it doesn't fall within the definition of an affected company. So once non-affected companies is selected, then the ownership questions are posed that will ascertain whether beneficial ownership is applicable or not in terms of this specific declaration. Where beneficial ownership exists that must be declared, the system will direct filers to the existing normal beneficial ownership declaration functionality, which remains unchanged. So if the ownership questions are yes, for any of the ownership questions posed, the system will automatically direct the filer to the normal BO declaration functionality to proceed with the declaration. If all of the questions are no, that is where this optimized system can be used, because it is confirmed by the filer that there is no beneficial ownership applicable. Where no beneficial ownership exists, for example, there's no other influence, control, shareholding, etc., the BO optimized functionality can be utilized as mentioned. The legislation further requires the submission of a securities register. This is mandated for all entities, whether there's beneficial ownership to declare or not. That document must be filed, or a members register in the case of CCs. So even where no beneficial ownership is declared, with the simplified functionality, however, entities will be able to complete the securities register online on the functionality itself with no upload of documentation required. So here we are talking about the securities register that must be uploaded with the normal BO declaration that contains BO information. So with this functionality, we are saying that there is no beneficial ownership to declare. Therefore, the CIPC holds the information of the members of the CC. We hold the information of the directors of the companies. And in the instances where you have a sole director that is also 100% shareholder, there's no additional influence, external influence or control or profit sharing agreements or whatever the case may be, then that is the information that is going to be indicated on the securities register, the director information. And the only thing that the filer needs to do is complete the securities component, because we don't hold shareholding information. All right. So users of the optimized functionality, which is only non-affected companies without BO, will be able to submit either the SMS or email OTP or both in order to proceed. So this is one of the changes for the optimized system, is that you can either input the email or SMS OTP or both, if that is the requirement, and the system will allow that to go through. That's just one of the ways that the process has been simplified. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, the crux of this new optimized BO system is that a declaring company must tend to the ownership questions correctly. Where no other ownership, excluding the directors and members or control or any other influence or benefit in terms of the company exists, then the BO optimized system is for you. Queries, as you know, on beneficial ownership declarations can be directed to the beneficial ownership inquiries at cipc.co.za for attendance by the BO team. Thank you very much. I think Shani will take over from me for to show you the videos, and then questions will be tended to in the chat part. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for that, Lucinda. Okay, we're having the video uploaded, but please post your questions on the comments. I see
To the
there's a few
simplified
questions over
beneficial
there,
ownership
and we
filing
will
process.
answer it just
For
now.
this application, we also a private company. Logging on to the CIPC services, you're going to log on as per usual using the customer code and password, as well as completing the security code as provided on the web page. Once you have completed the customer code and password and logging on, the landing page, as per usual, will confirm that companies linked to the ID number appearing on the customer code. We would draw your attention to the top right-hand corner where you would then select Transact. So you will click on Transact. The web page will refresh where a bouquet of CIPC online services will be presented to you. Now, from the bouquet of services, we are going to draw your attention to the bottom of the screen. So the second last box at the bottom where the beneficial ownership option appears, you're going to select there by clicking on beneficial ownership. On the following landing page, you will have a declaration to read and agree to. Declaration confirming that you are authorized and mandated to file information, beneficial information to the CIPC on behalf of the filing entity. After reading and agreeing to the declaration, you will tick the box next to the I agree by ticking the box and selecting continue. On this page, confirms any application that's in process, rejected, or completed applications. To facilitate a new filing, you will scroll down to the bottom of the page and click on New. The page will refresh where it gives you a list of companies that appear with the ID number of the customer code holder, or you can use the search functionality at the bottom. This page confirms the company information, the name, number, and the type of entity, also confirming the contact details that the OTP will be sent to for the facilitation of this BO filing. You will just scroll down to the bottom and select continue. We now are going to land on the beneficial ownership page, where you would need to select if the company is an affected or non-affected. On the right-hand side, there's a guidance notice there advising what is the requirements for an affected company. On the ownership questions, you will just select yes or no. The first question being, does one person hold securities for the beneficial interest of another natural person? You would answer yes or no. The second, is there a person except the director or member who exercises any influence or has control over the company or close corporation? The third being, is there a person except the director or members with the right to appoint and remove directors of the company? And the fourth being, is there a person except the director or members that has the ability to materially influence the management of the declaring company or close corporation? By answering those questions between yes or no, you will then click on continue. And the ownership question continues that the number of directors or members of the declaring entity are 10 or less. Then you would select a yes or no. The landing page on security registry where the beneficial owner appears, you will then go to the far right under the edit option and select edit. A summary of that specific beneficial owner information will appear where some information is masked out. What you need to complete on this page would be the date interest issued, meaning the date that the benefit or the shares or the interest was acquired or issued to the specific beneficial owner. You will then capture the number of securities issued and the share class of those specific securities. You will then go down to the bottom and save the information. Once the information is captured, you will then select the continue option, where it will give you a summary of information that was completed on the previous page, being the number of securities, the date issued, as well as the class of the security. You will then select continue. At this stage, we would have reached the OTP stage, where it confirms the contact details the OTP is sent to. And next to the beneficial owner's information, there's a red box there with a cross confirming that the OTP is not confirmed as yet. At the bottom there, kindly note you have an option of completing an OTP received either on your cell phone via SMS or an OTP received via email. So we'll just complete the information there as received via SMS. Once the OTP is completed, you will then click on verify for the information to be verified if the OTP is correct. And if it is correct, on the far right-hand side of the beneficial owner information, the box would have now turned into a green box with a tick, and it's important to then select and click on finish to conclude the application. Once the application is concluded, the filer will then receive a filing notification confirming the filing of this specific beneficial ownership application on behalf of this entity. We've reached the end of the demo. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll have our next video.
Simplified beneficial ownership filing process for a non-affected company that also happens to be a non-profit company. Logging on the CIPCE services will be as per usual, using your customer code and password to be able to access our CIPCE services. It is also important to make sure that the security code provided is completed as seen, as the security code is case sensitive. Once you have logged on using your customer code and password, the page will refresh where you will now be on a landing page that lists the number of companies that have got the same ID number registered on them as the customer code being used. We would then draw your attention to the top right-hand corner of the web page, where we would like you to then select Transact. Once you've selected Transact, the web page will refresh where a list of CIPC's online services would then be provided to you. We'll draw your attention to the bottom of those options, to the option beneficial ownership, and that is the one that you will click and select, of which the web page will then refresh, and the landing page you start on with would be the declaration. Basically, the declaration confirming that as the filer, you are authorized and mandated to file beneficial ownership information on behalf of the entity that you'll be filing for. Once you've read and agreed to the declaration, you will tick the box next to the agree and then select continue. On this page that you've landed on now will confirm either applications that are in process, rejected, or completed applications. To start a new application, you will scroll down to the bottom and you will then select new. The following page that you would land on will give you a list of companies that have got the same ID number appearing on them as the customer code. You are able to select the company from the list of companies, or you are also welcome to use the enterprise search function at the bottom of the page. Once you've searched for the company, you are now on enterprise confirmation, where it confirms the type of entity, the name and the registration number, as well as the contact details where the OTP will be sent to facilitate the filing of this beneficial ownership submission. You can then just proceed by selecting and clicking on continue. The beneficial ownership registry now confirms the company name and number. You would select affected or non-affected company. On the right-hand side, there's a guide confirming what is an affected company. Ownership questions: does one person hold securities for the beneficial interest of another natural person? You would just select yes or no. Is there a person who exercises any influence or control over the company or the closed corporation, excluding the members or directors? Is there a person with the right to appoint and remove directors of the company, excluding the directors and the shareholders? And the last one being, is there a person or persons that has the ability to materially influence the management of the declaring company? And you can answer those questions simply with a yes or no. The following question that it will ask you is the number of directors and members of the declaring entity. Are they 10 or less? You would select either a yes or no to that. Then click on continue to proceed. Because we're dealing with a non-profit company, the bare minimum is that you would have at least 3 directors appearing. So you will then make use of the edit function next to each of the director information for it to open their information. Here you will just capture the date interest issued for that specific director or beneficial owner. You will select the date by maneuvering and moving on the calendar provided. The type of mandate, you have an option to select between control and interest, and you will quantify the interest by merely typing the amount in there. You will then select save to save the information, and you will follow the same process for the remaining two directors. The information will come up. You will maneuver on the calendar to then select the date interest issued for this specific one. They select the member type, either of interest or control in the company. You will then proceed to the bottom to save, and you will do so for the third director. By clicking on the edit function, the information opens. You confirm the date interest issued by maneuvering on the calendar and selecting the member type, being it interest or control, as we are dealing with a non-profit company. You quantify the interest, and then you will then proceed to select save. Once captured for all of the appearing 3 directors on the company, you would then select continue. On this page, it gives you a confirmation summary of the information captured on the previous page for those directors, being the member interest type, the issue date, as well as the quantified interest value. You will then select continue to proceed. We have now reached the OTP page, and on OTP, the filer would be the one who will then send the OTP. You will then notice that there's a red box with a cross there to confirm that the OTP is not confirmed or verified as yet. You would then just complete the OTP, knowing that you either have an option of either completing an OTP received from your cell phone or an OTP received via email. Once verified, you will get a green tick confirming that the OTP has been accepted. It is important to then proceed to select finish to then conclude the application. Once the application is concluded, the filer will then receive a confirmation email confirming the submission of the beneficial ownership declaration for this non-profit company. We've reached the end.
Thank you very much for that very informative video. I am sure these videos have helped you understand better the process. Please note that the presentation as well as these 2 videos are uploaded on the CIPC website. So you are welcome to re-watch the videos and re-listen to Lucinda's presentation. Ms. Steenkamp, will you be answering a few questions for us?
Thank you very much, Shani. I saw that we have a lot of questions in the chat that have been answered by the BO team as well. I think just for time management's sake, I'm just going to tend to a few closing remarks that will simplify. Ladies and gentlemen, remember that this optimized system, and I cannot stress this enough, is only where we don't have any beneficial ownership to declare. So that is why the ownership questions are so important. It is, if there is any beneficial ownership that needs to be declared outside of the directors or members of a CC, and the reason why we are saying excluding that is because shareholders, directors, and members of a closed corporations are regarded as legal owners, although they can definitely overlap. You will all remember when we initially started with the beneficial ownership education and awareness campaigns, it was made very clear that a shareholder, which is a legal owner, can still be a beneficial owner because there can be another natural person for whom he or she holds beneficial interest in an entity. So it is, once it gets complex and there is beneficial ownership to declare, stick to the normal system and follow that process. So the not upload of the mandate, the not upload of securities register, etc., is only applicable where there is no beneficial ownership to declare outside of your existing directors. So where you have a private company that has 2 directors, less than 10 is one of the questions. And both of those directors are shareholders as well. Then the CIPC holds that information. We have the director's information. On the system, it asks you to complete the shareholding part of that private company's directors that are also shareholders. So that is where the ownership questions come in. Where you have shareholders that are not also directors of a company, the normal BO process must be followed, and the optimized system is then not going to work for you. I saw also that they were quite, and we received quite a few queries in the beneficial ownership inquiries mailbox as well about the update of the security information. So on this system specifically, because you are not uploading your securities register, that capital information of the entity must be updated. We're not talking about previously filed beneficial ownership information. We're not talking about the content of a previously filed securities register. We're talking about the capital information of a company. So the authorized shares that the company is authorized to issue, and that is why it's grayed out, because it is extracted from our system. The only place where it can be amended is that number which is issued. If that doesn't come to your total, the normal BO process must be followed. If you get an error message that says no securities information is available, and there was a problem with close corporations specifically because the members' interest didn't pull through from the CIPC main database. Correction on that was run this past Sunday, so that should be corrected now. If the system tells you that there's no securities information available, it means that the CIPC capital records for this company's information is not up to date. And the client will have to go back and do a shares amendment filing, MOI amendment filing process through the normal platforms to update the capital information in order to proceed with the BO process. So just to sum up and to summarize, this system is only applicable where you have entities, the small entity, small private company with 2 directors, and both of those directors are also the shareholders of this entity. There are no other control, influence, or any type of ownership attached to this entity. They can use this optimized system. And as I've mentioned earlier, more than 23,000 have already filed through this platform. If you would like a confirmation certificate that confirms that is downloadable, it must be through the normal BO process. Affected companies and non-affected without beneficial ownership does not receive certificates, even with the normal system, and only an email notification, because there isn't any actual BOs declared on the system. You cannot be provided with a certificate confirming beneficial ownership. So the golden rule with this system is make sure that your clients do not have any beneficial ownership applicable, and then this system is for you. This is for non-affected entities without BO, sole shareholder or share directors less than 10, that's also the shareholders of the entity. Then this process can be used. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. As Shani has mentioned, the presentation as well as the videos will be uploaded on our CIPC website for your further use. Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our session. On behalf of the entire team, we would like to thank you for your time and attention today. We hope you found the webinar informative. I know I did, and that it helped clarify the changes in terms of the beneficial ownership optimization. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.